Welcome to another edition of the Backyard Professor videos. I'm Kerry Schertz, the Backyard Professor. I've decided I'm going to, let me see if I can get this up a little closer. I told you I would elaborate on Blake Ostler's text of God and Gods on the Council of the Gods, and this particular chapter that I want to talk about I have read 3 times now. I finished Michael Heiser's doctoral dissertation. I've been trying to read some of the, I've read the exchange between Michael Heiser and David Bokovoy in the Farms Review for 2007 that I'll get to. This Ostler really does an extensive analysis of several aspects of the Hebrew as well as the underlying meaning of what the Hebrew text says and the underlying meaning of what some biblical scholars assume the text means. It's very interesting. And of course it has to do with metaphysical monotheism. Ostler masterfully handles the situation. Now he goes into the Hebrew pretty well, and I will explore that with you. When I get to Michael Heiser, Heiser is by far the most extensive Hebrew analysis I've ever seen on the Council of the Gods. Him and what's his name? E. Theodore Mullen Jr. Really detailed analysis of both the Ugaritic and the Hebraic analysis. And here's why. Because it is now known, it is now understood by virtually all of biblical scholarship that the Ugaritic information is just exactly like the ancient Hebrew thought and information. And so the presumption is not necessarily that the ancient Jews took their theology from the Ugaritic pantheons of the gods, but it's an overall general, because now we have some Mesopotamian parallels with the Enuma Elish and the various different discussions with El and Baal, and in the Ugaritic group, it's not just one area, it's absolutely all over the ancient Near East. This is pretty much confirmed and well understood now by biblical scholarship. This Council of the Gods is the worldview, where you have a high deity and his sons in the next tier, and then in the tier under them, the angels, the messengers. It's basically a 3-tier system. Heiser focuses on a 2-tier system. That's kind of interesting. And Blake Ostler does a really good job of summarizing the research and the work of Mark S. Smith. And so I think that's a good overview, because I focused on some aspects of Mark S. Smith in his book, The Early Israelite Monotheism. And I didn't really summarize his information on the Council of the Gods. Ostler does a good job. Now understand, Heiser disagrees with Mark S. Smith's evolutionary formula. And so there's some real interesting, there are details in this biblical analysis in the Hebrew that are extremely interesting to see where the scholars are disagreeing, but overall the concept of the Council of the Gods, and that is definitely plural, is absolutely as firmly established as the doctrine that God created the earth. It's that solid, really, truly. There's no question. God created the heavens and the earth from the Hebrew biblical standpoint. There's no question that there was a Council of the Gods either. So I want to explore Blake Ostler. I'm not going to jump around from text to text like I have in some of my other videos. I'll just take it one text at a time, and really, this chapter is big enough of Ostler's. It's going to take me 15 videos, I suspect. And I'll do that with Heiser. With Heiser, I'll probably take about 500, because he is superb. The advantage is, on the board, and I've written some stuff on the board, and I'll show you what it is. The advantage is I can help share the language of the Council of the Gods with you in the Hebrew, so that you can learn the Hebrew with me as well as the English, and understand this principle, this magnificent principle. Heiser says there is not one doctrine in the Bible that is not touched or affected by this Council of the Gods. That's how important this background worldview is. Every single doctrine is affected. Now that this has come out, we now are realizing where we have assumed too much or too little, and what we thought we knew isn't necessarily so. So I'm going to get on to Blake Ostler here. Now the Council of the Gods ties in with the doctrine of what Blake Ostler has called metaphysical monotheism, and with the doctrine of creation ex nihilo. Creation ex nihilo is not the ancient Hebraic thought. Sorry, wrong answer. It didn't show up until about 180 to 200 AD, and it has been taken and read back onto the Old Testament. The ancient Hebrews, the ancient Jews, didn't think of creation ex nihilo. And an analysis of the Old Testament in its Hebrew shows this. And Blake has also, in his review of Craig and Copan, or Lane and Copan, in their new book on creation ex nihilo, he has demonstrated that the creation ex nihilo doctrine is nowhere in the New Testament either. But for now, I want to concentrate on the Old Testament analysis from Blake Ostler. He says on page 42, this is in the chapter Monotheism and the Council of the Gods. The doctrine of creation ex nihilo entails what I shall call metaphysical monotheism. And he defines this. This is the view that God alone is uncreated and everything else is created and dependent on God for its actuality. Given such a view, God is sui generis, or he is beyond species. Its own unique nature that cannot be shared by any other reality. Given that creation ex nihilo, the Creator must be immaterial because matter does not exist until it is created and is thus logically subsequent to the existence of the Creator. Given metaphysical monotheism, see, Blake is saying if we propose to accept the postulate of metaphysical monotheism, we'll give that, then this is the consequence of adapting metaphysical monotheism. That's all he's doing at this point. He's allowing to see the consequences of the acceptance of metaphysical monotheism. And then he'll explore the scripture and see if it fits. Given metaphysical monotheism, it follows that there is one and only one necessary being. This necessary being creates all else that exists. It seems to me that this is the assumption almost universally imposed on the concept of monotheism. Regardless of whether it is Israelite thought or Greek metaphysics, that is the issue. It is assumed that if Yahweh is the creator of all that exists, then Yahweh is this metaphysically unique being. This is how, for instance, evangelical Christians read metaphysical monotheism back onto the ancient Hebrew God Yahweh. When the scriptures are read with this a priori assumption in mind, the notion that there can be other gods, others that are properly put into the same class as God by using the same definitive word to refer to them, this is logically incoherent because of the adaptation of the metaphysical monotheism. Thus, the very word gods is a logical contradiction. If the scriptures refer to gods, it must be assumed that beings who are actually non-divine are referred to, or that such gods are themselves created, and thus not truly divine beings or gods in the same sense that God is divine. As we shall see, this a priori assumption has forced precisely such readings on the texts anachronistically to avoid the implications of a view that cannot be squared with metaphysical monotheism.